The Chargers have a huge matchup this weekend trying to get above 500 against a very good Detroit Lions team, and we're going to tell you how they can pull off the upset, and it starts with feeding Gerald Everett.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 8 seasons, but this is our 6th year as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making this your first listen today, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Today, Daniel, we have to talk about the Chargers going up against one of the tougher teams that they are going to face this season. On offense, it's all about feeding the beast. Get Gerald Everett more involved. We're going to tell you why that's so important. And on defense, it's all about disrupting the balance. That's what the Chargers got to do to win this game.
Yeah, Jared Goff has been incredible. I mean, to have the resurgence he had, after leaving Sean McVay has been really interesting to watch for sure. But he can be rattled, and the Chargers will have to do that. But this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. David, I think last week one of the things that stood out was Gerald Everett.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Yeah.
But I think you saw last week, even with only 2 catches, one of them only going for 1 yard, why you want to get him more involved. And he had one of the more impressive 17-yard catches that you'll ever see, breaking a tackle on the sideline, spinning out of it, staying in bounds, breaking another tackle, and finding a way to get a big first down when the Chargers were having a very hard time offensively trying to move the chains. And it always just feels like this dude, has so much potential to do more, but so far this season, we haven't seen enough of him used. And it's weird because Kellen Moore loved using his tight ends in the passing game when he was in Dallas. Gerald Everett had his best receiving season last year, and we just don't see nearly enough of him. And this is a matchup where this guy has to get involved, especially when you're missing 2 of your top offensive weapons with Mike Williams and Josh Palmer.
Not only that, Daniel, but I like the attitude that he brings and the intensity that he brings and that he plays with. And I think going up against a pretty rough and really tough, Detroit Lions physical football team, I want to match that energy. I want to match that energy with guys that I know that bring their lunch pail to work and they want to run through people. And that is definitely Gerald Everett. And fortunately for them, unfortunately for him, it's a very good matchup against the Detroit Lions because they have given up quite a few catches to tight ends over the course of this season. 5 catches against the Chiefs and a touchdown. Against the Falcons, 10 catches for 78 yards. Also against Baltimore, they had 2 touchdowns by the tight end Mark Andrews. So this is a very good matchup for the Chargers to utilize Gerald Everett and the other tight ends to get those chains moving.
Well, we know how big it is in games like this to be good in the red zone, right? And I think that's where
absolutely.
You'll see him do his most work. But yeah, tight ends against them so far this year, averaging 5.75 receptions and 60 yards. The Chargers have only had 1 game this season where Gerald Everett and Donald Parham have combined for 6 catches. And it was when Gerald Everett had 6 catches earlier on in the year. Listen to this. There hasn't been a single game that the 2 of them have combined for a 60 receiving yard game. The Chargers tight ends have not had 60 receiving yards in a game so far this season. And you're going up against a team that allows that on average, right? Yeah. Not to mention the teams who had better tight ends that did even more with it. But this is the big reason for me. I mean, we talk about YAC and getting Quentin Johnston involved.
Yeah.
There's nobody on this team that's breaking more tackles on a more consistent basis with the ball in their hands than Gerald Everett.
Yep.
In the NFL at his position.
There it is.
Listen to this. Gerald Everett has forced 12 missed tackles so far this season, right, on very limited receptions.
Wow.
The next closest person in the NFL in missed tackles forced at tight end is 9, right? So he's 25% more, right, or 33% more than the next closest guy at his position. He has 3 more missed tackles forced than any other guy playing the position. The Chargers need to do a much better job of getting him involved and targeting him a little deeper down the field. Out of anyone that had at least 20 receptions so far this season, 20 targets, he had 3.5 yards down the field is where they're targeting him on average. I know you want to get him the ball a lot, And a couple quick passes is fine, but find a way to get him down the field in space a little bit more. And
Yeah, he can do that too.
And watch out when they do. But where else would you go as far as these offensive keys here, David, that you think the Chargers have to do this week?
Yeah, one of the things that I saw against the Jets were, hey, the Chargers went up against a really, really tough defensive line that gave them a lot of fits. But when they did have success is when they did the 6 and 7 man protection. So I want to see a lot more of that schemed and put into the game plan as far as providing Justin Herbert with some clean pockets to be able to attack down the football field. I think that needs to be a focal point part of the protection plan for the Chargers this week.
And specifically just giving help to Aiden Hutchinson. He's easily their best pass rusher. He's going to line up against Trey Pipkins. Help Trey Pipkins out. There's no reason to leave him on an island for 40 pass blocking snaps in this game against one of the best pressure guys in the NFL. But I think that it's hard to look for the running attack in this game to have a big game. But I do think that it will be important, especially to set up play action and do things like that for the Chargers to run the football. And when you do, give it to Josh Kelly, man. We talked about it earlier this week. That's one of my keys for success this week. I saw Stephen Hagelin posted a tweet kind of like this as far as just how good he's been so far this year. Out of 53 running backs with 40 attempts, he's tied for 14th in yards per carry this season. He's 13th in the NFL in yards after contact, how many yards he's getting after he gets hit. That's top 15 in the league. The Chargers are looking for a running back and looking for a way to fix their running game. They literally have a dude on the team.
It's already there.
Like
he's already here.
15 runner. He's been a top 15 runner so far this year. Then you compare that to Austin Eckler. He's 37th out of 53 in yards after contact per attempt. And you can still use Austin Eckler. Use him as a receiver, right? Like, we knew at some point in Austin Eckler's career, it was going to turn more into a receiving specific type of role, right? We always kind of knew that.
Oh, yeah.
Do it now. And the Lions have a physical front. They only give up 3.7 yards per attempt. Give me the guy who's a battering ram and is just going to get you the absolute most he can. And even if that's 3 or 4 at a time. And he's super explosive too, So, I think he's the guy that should get the carries if the Chargers are going to run the ball. It doesn't mean run your head into the wall. But when you do, give it to Josh Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Daniel, I swear, we do this every week. We never talk about what keys that we have for each. One of mine is carries for Kelly, catches for Austin. That's what I want to see, right? I want to see Josh Kelly get more opportunities in between the tackles. I think he's a little bit more of a physical runner. And you know what Austin Eckler can do as a receiver. He is a wide receiver in a running back's body, and he's a guy that can keep the chains moving. And
Austin Eckler catch the ball this week, right?
Yes,
that's another key.
The 3 drops, man, that can't happen, right? That can't happen again. And I know that's an anomaly that doesn't usually happen.
And they weren't all perfect passes.
Sure, but hey, we need you to get those. We need you to bring those in for sure, especially against a team of this caliber. You have to mitigate the drops and the mistakes.
Absolutely, and you just had to give Justin Herbert some support in this game, however you can find it. And that to me brings us to the biggest point for me. Find a way to find your offense in the second half, right?
Yes.
The Chargers the whole thing is trying to beat good teams. The Chargers have had opportunities to beat good teams like the Dolphins, like the Cowboys in the fourth quarter and in the second half where the offense has disappeared. They have been shut out in 2 of their last 5 games in the second half. If you take away the touchdown they got in the last game, which you started on the 2-yard line, so I'm not going to give you a ton of credit for that, obviously. No. You have 1 touchdown in the second half of your last 5 games. Unacceptable. And your last 5 games in the third quarter, you've scored a combined 9 points in the third quarter. This is supposed to be a guy who came in excelling in the third quarter. One of the things we love the most because we saw a bad third quarter offense with Joe Lombardi for the last 2 years before this one, right? So, if you want to find a way to beat good teams, it's probably going to be close at the end. You're going to have to finish these games out, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is not to continually rely on your defense with, barely to no offense at all. Like the Chargers' second half offense has been bad. Has to be better this week if they're going to get a win.
It absolutely does. And also, I think they have a good matchup in the red zone as well. The Lions ranked 25th in the league on offense in the red zone, but they're 27th in defense in the red zone, allowing touchdowns. So the Chargers, when they get to the red zone, they have to finish with touchdowns. No field goals this week. It's finishing with touchdowns. Aggressive nature, get those points on the board, score touchdowns against the Lions.
And that's the opposite of last week, right? Where it's like, hey, if you get there, take the points.
Exactly.
This time you need to finish with touchdowns, and they're not very good in red zone or offense either. So that could be what decides this game. We're going to tell you what the Chargers need to do offensively to pull off the upset, including getting them off balance, getting them behind the sticks, derailing this well-oiled Detroit offense, and we're going to talk about that coming up right after this. First, though, I do need to tell you guys about Prize Picks, which is daily fantasy made easy. With Prize Picks, all you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. The more entries that you hit on, the more you can win. And if you hit on 6 of them on the same entry, you can win up to 25 times your money. Prize Picks also offers great offers every week, like Taco Tuesday, where you get a 25% discount on the projection, so you're getting an even easier mark to clear for you to get in the win column. With Prize Picks reboot policy also, they're the only daily fantasy sports that will give you a way to be bailed out a little bit if a player gets injured, because there's nothing worse than that when you have somebody and they get hurt. In the NFL or college football, if the player doesn't play or plays in the first half and exits and does not return in the second half, that player is rebooted with Prize Picks. So if you want to go this game, you can go Justin Herbert, more or less than 260.5 passing yards, or Austin Eckler, getting more or less than half a touchdown in this game, receiving, passing, rushing, however he wants to do it. All you guys have to do, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Promo code LockedOnNFL for that deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. I also need to tell you guys about Jace Medical, because we spent a lot of time talking together, especially with the wins and losses and the ups and downs of this team. And I'm thankful for the connection that we have there. But today, I want to talk about something a little bit more personal, because whether you're on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, we have you covered with Jace Medical. Because thanks to our partners at Jace Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply, even ED generics like Cialis, Viagra, Revatio, prescription, whatever you're looking for. So go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply of your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. And I think this sums it up great. From a customer of Jace Medical, they say, "I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues have caused me to cut pills in half to have them. I order most of my daily meds with a year supply. I also ordered the antibiotic kit. I feel secure now, and you're getting them for prices that are lower than your local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone." So if you are someone you'd love to get some peace of mind by having something like this, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. David, we talked about what we want to see from the Chargers offense, but let's talk about the unit for this team that's actually been super hot over the last couple of games, and that's the Chargers defense. And you want to start to buy in, right? That's the thing with this defense. You want to buy in, but you know they just went up in back-to-back games against backup quarterbacks and against offenses that aren't very good.
Yeah.
Can they do it this weekend against a good offense, right? Or will another good offense run circles around this defense? That's what this is about. And I think when you're looking at it, it is about what you talked about, right? It's about getting the Lions offense off balance. It's about getting someone like Jared Goff behind the sticks and forcing them out of their game plan. And they can still pick up third and longs, and you can't get discouraged by that at times. But, like, if you get them off schedule, you're going to have a good chance with this game. I think it starts with the run defense there, and the Chargers continuing something that they've been really strong at, especially lately.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a team that comes in that's a very, very balanced offensive attack. You want to disrupt that balance. You want to be able to take away one of those things that they have been doing so well. 293 pass attempts, 244 rushing attempts, and they've been equally as effective as both. They're top 6th in both categories, run and pass, which is ridiculous, obviously.
Yeah.
But the Chargers
balance.
have a top 6 run defense in the NFL. That needs to show up again this week. They need to pay attention to which running back is in the game, either Jahmyr Gibbs or Montgomery. Both have kind of different contrasting styles, but both very, very effective football players. The Chargers defensive front especially needs to continue to play physical and be able to shut down the running game. The edge players are going to have a big part to do with that as well, but shut down the running game, make them as one-dimensional as possible. If you do that, you lessen the impact of the play-action pass as well.
Yeah, and when you look at, when teams have shut down their running game, their 2 losses were 2 of their 3 worst rushing performances, right?
There you go.
And if you look at the last 2 games that somebody has played the run well against them, they ran for a combined 124 yards versus Tampa and Baltimore for, an average of 13 points per game. I mean, you'd sign up for that right now. When they're not able to run, the offense doesn't look the same, and they're a team that is not only top 10 in rushing In passing, they're top 10 in both yards per carry and rushing yards per game. But I think it's all about giving your pass rushers a chance against a very good offensive line, right? You don't do that by letting them have 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 1s.
Right.
Like, you do that by giving them a little bit of extra time, which takes me into my next key here, which is just having a great plan for Amon-Ra St. Brown. This whole season we've talked about, the Chargers shutting down number 1 wide receivers and the lack thereof, right? Every wide receiver,
the inability to do so,
receiving option that's gone up against him for the most part has gone nuts, right? Now you have a guy coming to town over these are his last 3 games: 6 for 108, 13 for 102, and 12 for 124. Like, it's almost impossible right now to stop Amon-Ra St. Brown from getting 100 yards, 500-yard games this season. But the last couple of games, obviously against bad offenses, DJ Moore 4 for 55, Garrett Wilson 7 catches for 80 and a fumble. You would take those numbers, right? Those are their star players, and you're keeping them to at least somewhat reasonable totals. And I think it starts, David, with just getting more from Michael Davis and Asante Samuel Jr. Jasir Taylor's, a second-year player. He's going to take his lumps.
Yeah.
You need better from the 2 guys who are your starting outside cornerbacks in this game.
I agree completely. I mean, they absolutely need to lock down their matchups, and they have a couple of tough matchups this week. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, it gets the largest target share from the Lions, and it's really not even close. Yeah. It's him, and then it's Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end.
Watch out for Sam Laporta, too.
Yeah. Sam Laporta is dangerous. I mean, he's another guy that got away, and I could see it.
I know a guy you were very high on, too. Yeah.
Very high on him, yeah, and it looks like he is really shining as a rookie this year in that offense. So you got to be worried about him. You got to have a great plan for Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you got to double him. I'm fine with that. I mean, you got to do everything you can to slow this guy down and not let him take over this game.
As David would say, he's a catalyst for their offense. And as Derek Ansley said, from Michael Davis and Asante Samuel Jr., their best ball is ahead of them, right? I mean, and he's saying it. They can play better. They need to play better in this matchup because Queef Raymond, Josh Reynolds, those guys aren't no slouch, right?
No, they're not.
All those guys can be used effectively in this offense. The last thing for me, David, in a game you're trying to win against a good team, it feels like these games, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning, are decided by a couple of things: turnovers and red zone stops.
That's it.
This is where the game will be decided for me, right? The Seahawks turned them over 3 times in their overtime win against them. They turned the ball over 3 times last week in their last game against a very bad Raiders team, right?
Yeah.
And the Chargers, over the last 2 games, David, 5 forced turnovers and 3 forced turnovers on downs. There was another one, but one of those was an interception by Derwin James. So it was both a 4th down stop and a turnover.
It was.
But turnover on downs are just as good as a turnover in most scenarios, right? So, that's 8 the Chargers have had over the last 2 games, and that's the reason they've won as handily as they have, right?
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
And then you're also combining that with the fact that you're going up against a team who's 24th in red zone touchdown percentage, the Detroit Lions offense, over their last 3 games, 12.5%. They've scored 1 touchdown in their last 8 red zone trips. That is, I think, where this game could be decided.
I agree. Absolutely. You got to stay stingy. I mean, if it's bend, don't break. You want to allow as many field goals as possible, for sure. Yeah. But going back to your point, going for the football, I think it is an especially specific key. The Detroit Lions have fumbled 9 times this season.
That's a wild number.
Lost 4 of those fumbles. And the Chargers got 2 of those forced fumbles last week. So actually 3 forced fumbles last week. Khalil Mack had one, Joey Bosa had one, and Alohi Gilman had one. So they have been going for the football a lot more effectively. That needs to continue in this game. They absolutely need as many turnovers as possible. Get the ball back to Justin Herbert's offense. And hey, I understand they're going up against one of the better offensive lines in the league, but it's all about what you do. And I still have as one of my last keys is release the hounds. I mean, you still got Khalil Mack, you still got Joey Bosa, who is healthy, playing extremely well. Morgan Fox has 5.5 sacks. Tule's got 4 sacks. Release the hounds. You want to stay connected. You want to help out your pass coverage on the back end. You got to stay connected by getting after the passer and getting in Jared Goff's face. He will crumble. He is a quarterback that does feel pressure, and he does start to feel some ghosts when they're not there. So if you get in his face and you disrupt him, it can have a long-standing impact throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the reason I didn't bring it up is because we talked about it so much yesterday, right? I mean, the Chargers pass rush and whether it's able to get home is going to decide this game in a large part because this secondary will get picked apart if they don't get pass rush. And the Chargers have done it well all season, but especially over the last couple of games, their pass rush has just been, relentless.
Yes.
Now you get a much bigger test, right? You don't get the battered Jets offensive line.
No.
You don't get the terrible Chicago Bears offensive line. You get a good offensive line that you're going up against. The last time they did that was against the Chiefs, and we can all agree in that game they did not do a good enough job of getting pressure, and that secondary got torched because of it, especially in the second half, right? So I think those are all things that the Chargers have to do, and I think if they can do those things, they will pull off the upset in this game. It's just hard to have confidence that they're going to hit on all those and check all those boxes. They should have a good plan for this one. Brandon Staley got to go up against Jared Goff for an entire season. Theoretically, right? In theory, Brandon Staley should have the keys to what Jared Goff doesn't like to see, what he struggles with, the buttons to push to get him off of his game. Will they be able to implement it? That's another story. But if they can, they could pull off a big upset, get to 5-4, and have a really, really soft next 5 games coming up on their schedule. It's huge. This is a big game coming up. But let's put our money where our mouths are. I did do my prediction yesterday, but maybe David will pick the Chargers to pull off a big upset this weekend, and we'll also get into our bold predictions and get crazy after we hit on one last week. We'll get into that right after this. I do need to tell you guys that this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. This time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some sadness and anxiety about it. I always get a little bit like that during the holidays too, but adding something new and positive to your life can counteract some of those feelings, and that's one of the great things about therapy. For me in the holidays, it's always weird. I love my family to death. When I go to see people I haven't seen in a long time like that, I get anxious. I get a little down. It's really, really weird, but I've been less so lately since I've been in therapy. One of the things that it helps you realize is all the benefits and the pros and getting you out of your own head so you're not just seeing the negative things that come with the holidays. You're able to appreciate it and appreciate the time that you get to spend with your family. Appreciate the end of the year and getting into something new in the upcoming year. And therapy helps with all of those things for me. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first order. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. David, it's time to get buck wild and get into these bold predictions. But before we get into that, I do need to tell you guys, if you want to get the full landscape of this upcoming NFL weekend, make sure to check out Locked On NFL Kickoff Live, which you can find every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern with hosts Tanisha Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs, who are going to get into every game and get insight from all the local experts from around the league and the Locked On Podcast Network, as nobody covers their own team like Locked On does. And you guys can check that out every Friday on every Locked On NFL channel, the Locked On NFL Kickoff Live Show, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. David, let's get into our bold and our game predictions. We never go over these beforehand, right? So, we could be thinking the same thing. I'm very interested to see where you go with this one. I think especially defensively, going up against a really, really good offense, really well-oiled machine. Ben Johnson, potentially future head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, if things don't go well with Brandon Staley. What do you think, David, offensively? Who are you looking at to have a big one in this one?
Yeah, so I think a guy who needs to have a big game in this one, who is really the main catalyst for the offense, and of course I'm talking about Justin Herbert himself. I think Justin Herbert is going to get up for this football game. I think he is going to want to show everybody that he is still a top quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't do it with his words. He does it with his play. So that's why I have Justin Herbert going for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I'm going to add this one in here. The Chargers offensive line is going to give up 0 sacks in this game. That's bold.
That is bold. No, that's bold. I mean, last week we went, no touchdowns. The Chargers defense allowing no touchdowns, which I didn't know if we'd see in an entire, season. So I like you going bold there. It's funny because when you were talking about who you were going with and saying all the things, obviously you're wearing a Justin Herbert jersey for those who can't see. So maybe I should have known. I thought you were talking about Keenan Allen, because if you're talking about the most consistent player on this Chargers offense this year, it's Keenan Allen, and it's not that close, right?
That's
and
right.
Obviously Keenan Allen needs Justin Herbert to give him the ball. But when I look at this, obviously I want to see Gerald Everett involved. I want to see Austin Eckler involved. Hell, I'd love to see Quentin Johnston get more involved. We all want to see that, right?
Yeah.
But Keenan Allen, is going to get the targets in this one, right? Because he is the thing, and if you pepper Keenan Allen with targets, usually good things happen. So
I agree.
I'm going Keenan Allen, 12 catches, 130 yards in this game, and a touchdown. You're going up against a really good run defense. I could see Justin Herbert having a big game, and if he does have a big game, a big portion of that yardage is coming from number 13, the second most receiving yards in franchise history, chasing number 1, Keenan Allen in this
Keenan
next
Alien
game.
himself.
Yeah, I think he could do it. I don't think there's, anyone in that secondary that I think is better than what they saw last week with the Jets and easier for both Herbert and Keenan Allen. But also, it's Keenan Allen, right? So he's going to get some tough matchups. He's going to win a lot of those anyways because that's what he does. So
because he's that good.
Yeah, let's get into our defensive bowl predictions here, David. This is a tough one going up against, like we said, a top 10 offense in rushing and passing. Where are you going with it?
Yeah, I mean, hey, in the big-time games, you need your superstars to show up and perform like superstars. So that's why I'm going with Derwin James. 10 tackles, 2 passes defensed, 1 interception, and a sack for the do-it-all safety, Derwin James.
I'd love to see Derwin get a sack. It feels like it's been a while. I don't even know if he has one this year.
And he's such a good blitzer.
Yeah,
you absolutely should be sending him after the quarterback several times a game.
And, I mean, looked damn good in the last game, too.
Sure did.
I mean, Derwin looked like Derwin in that last game, and it was huge to see that, and had a big hit where he wasn't flagged. I think,
thank God,
having that, I think, is truly going to build some confidence. He had a couple big
the OP
hits
strut after the big hit, too.
Yeah, the big strut afterwards, too. The celebrating of the defense. Hopefully we see more of that. I had a hard time with this one defensively because, I'm assuming the Lions are going to put up some points. I think it could be a good run defense game from the Chargers potentially, but they have a couple good running backs. I ended up going with this. I'm saying the Chargers are going to hold Amon-Ra St. Brown to under 70 yards and no touchdowns in this game. 3 straight games of 100 yards. He's only had under 60 yards one time this entire season, and it was 56 yards, so it wasn't very far off. No. Chargers have done a better job, at going up against number 1 receivers recently.
Yeah,
I think this week they're able to get it done. I would sign up for that right now. They have other weapons that can hurt you, but I think you would take that stat line from Amon-Ra going into this game. So let's get into our game predictions here. I picked the Chargers yesterday to lose 27-20. Hard early in the week. Another big storyline we don't know. Joey Bosa missing practice on Thursday with an illness. Hopefully he can get back in the swing of things because that would be good.
Although it is the shortest injury report I have ever seen from the Chargers. It's insane. It's literally Justin Herbert, and then it's just Joey Bosa with an illness. So they did say that Joey was at the Chargers practice field. He was there. He just wasn't practicing. So hopefully that bodes well.
Yeah, man, especially because he's been playing so freaking well.
So well.
But
I'm just happy it's not physical and it's more of a sickness. I feel like he'll probably play
It's just
through
not knowing what the sickness is.
Yeah,
you know
of course.
what I mean? But, obviously you feel like, hey, if it was COVID or something like that, probably wouldn't have him at the practice field around the rest of the guys, right? Or something that was mono, like we saw a guy miss a game a couple weeks ago. The guy missed I think it was the Bears game, right?
Yeah, it was the Bears game.
Brisker, I think, missed with mono. I don't want to slander him. Hopefully that's who it was. But, yeah, and somebody put a comment in the YouTube comments yesterday that said, I am negative and I always pick the Chargers to lose, which obviously, hey, I picked them to win the last 2 weeks against the Jets and the Bears, and they should win those games, right? But, the thing is, to me, is, like I said, it's a prove-it game to me, David. And I picked them to lose 27-20. Part of that is a little mistrust with the offense and the defense, and specifically them putting it all together in one game.
I think it's fair.
But the other thing is, I'm never going to come on here and tell you what I don't think. If you're looking for someone that's going to come on here and tell you the Chargers are going to win when they don't believe it, you need to find another show, right? Because it's like, even when David picks them to make big upsets, and I'm hoping he picks them right now, he truly believes it's going to happen. And we're always going to be out here wearing our heart on our sleeve. We're fans just like you guys are. But we're not always going to pick them to win. And for me, I want them to prove it, David. Do you think this is the week we finally see the Chargers beat a good team?
Well, Daniel, I'm a big believer in momentum, and I feel like when you have momentum, it's powerful. Right now, the Chargers have momentum, and they're healthy. But right now, if you want to get respect, you have to earn it. So that means that the Chargers have to go out there and beat a good team. Well, I'm here to tell you that the Chargers are going to silence the doubters and the haters, and they are going to beat the Lions, and they are going to do it by 31-24. I feel like this is going to be a high-scoring game, but I feel like the momentum is real. The Chargers have it, and they're about to go silence everybody with the biggest win of the year.
Yeah, man, I would love it. Obviously, I love that call. I think they absolutely can get it done. Getting the Lions off a bye week, I think Matt Derry yesterday said the Lions haven't won on the West Coast since 2011. I mean, there's been a lot of really bad Lions teams before the last couple of years, so that's kind of a hard one. But still, that's not an easy thing to do, them having to travel out here to do that. I think the Chargers absolutely can pull it off. Obviously, I picked them to lose yesterday. Show us some, go earn that respect and go beat a good team. I think they have a chance in this one, and hopefully David is correct, and you guys are joining us on Sunday afternoon for a live post-game show after a win, because those are always the funnest ones to do. But make sure you guys don't miss it. Subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from. You can also find the show every day by following us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, me on Twitter at DanTalkSports, and David Drogemeyer at DroTalkSD. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But go do it. Go get it done. You can beat this Lions team. We want to see it. Justin Herbert, primetime, primetime Justin Herbert on a non-primetime game, even though it should be a primetime game. I think it's one of the games of the weekend. Better than Broncos and Bills. I'll tell you that right now. But hopefully you guys are here with us for a victory post-game show on Sunday night. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.